Everyone is focused on the U.S. Treasury's emergency meeting today, but they did something far more important only hours ago that is going to have a huge impact on Bitcoin. The U.S. Treasury is now saying that they may use the $1 trillion in the Treasury general account to bail out the bond market. Gold and Bitcoin have already started rallying aggressively last week and continuing into this week. And this clip I'm about to play for you explains how fast Bitcoin could rip as the debt spiral accelerates. Let's watch it.
To own this debt anymore at the margin.
So the Fed should be raising rates. They just can't because the U.S. is horribly in debt. The U.S. Treasury, on the day we're recording, announced they're doubling the buybacks for somebody who's just got into Bitcoin in the last year or two, and they're still trying to understand macro. Simply put, what does debt buybacks mean for them?
It means more liquidity, more units of fiat chasing a finite amount of goods, Bitcoin being one of those goods, number go up. This is the road to 2008, the road to what created Bitcoin. And so that is what you're here for. This is the exact moment why you want to own Bitcoin, is when everyone realizes, oh, this U.S. government bond is not worth anything. I can't buy anything real with it. I can't even trade this market because it's such a manipulated market. I need a real store of value. I need something that really is going to respond positively to a lot more dollars chasing scarce goods. That's Bitcoin. That was the story in 2009 when it was created. That's been the story ever since. Obviously, it ebbs and flows with the liquidity cycle. But if you want to talk about an acute moment where the world says the emperor has no clothes, the largest sovereign debt market in the world, if people are actually worried that yield curve control is coming, the price of Bitcoin is going to be in the hundreds of thousands very quickly.
I love some bull posting on a Monday, right? Gotta love it. Gotta love it. I mean, actually, I guess being less of a jester and kind of thinking about where we are right now, there is a lot of uncertainty going on in the general macro markets right now. And again, I think we covered this on Thursday when this was announced about the U.S. Treasury doing debt or bond buybacks. And it looks as if this is a continuing trend. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, I was telling you guys about the Japanese bond markets. We intervened in that, or the U.S. Treasury intervened on the Japanese bond markets by selling euros. Well, now it looks like we are doing the same thing here in the U.S. And everyone's looking at it. It's basically yield curve control by any other name. And you can see that the U.S. Treasury is looking at the bond market. We have to protect our bond market. And if you're following the details very closely, we intervened in our bond market, or at the very least, announced we are going to intervene in the bond market. The bond yields did cool off a little bit, but we are basically back to the same prices when Scott Bessent announced that we were going to do this. So it hasn't had any effect yet. We will see how this all plays out. But everyone is focused on the Treasury emergency meeting. So that's going to happen in about 2 hours. But I think 2 p.m. is the stated time. And allegedly, it's going to be about Iranian sanctions, which, before I get into kind of the bond buyback angle of this story, there could be a little bit of a Bitcoin connection with this emergency meeting. So here's CNBC, Treasury Secretary to announce Iran sanction as Tehran dismisses economic warfare threat. You can see there's going to be a press conference today. Bessent told CNBC that the sanctions we will see will be the toughest in history. Iran dismisses them. There is a couple interesting quotes here before I keep going. So, quote from Scott Bessent: "At dawn begins an economic D-Day, the single greatest financial offensive ever marshaled against an adversary, a coordinated economic isolation in the history of the world." And then there's an interesting Trump quote here. "This will be the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country." Now, obviously, if you're a Bitcoiner, if you've been following along, simply Bitcoin in particular, we have mentioned many times on the show that Bitcoin throws a wrench in the traditional sanctions model that, nation states use, in particular the US. And it is interesting, the framing of this kind of announcement. Obviously, they might talk about the bond market in this press release that we're going to hear, or press conference that we're going to hear in a few hours. But it seems to be completely focused on Iran and trying to, cut off the money. As we always say, follow the money. Well, it looks like the U.S. Treasury and the White House are doing exactly that, except they're doing it a little more aggressively. Not only just follow the money, but try to cut off the money and therefore collapse the Iranian regime. What is interesting here, and there might be a bit of a Bitcoin connection, is the context of what I've been telling you guys and all of the different U.S. Treasury stories coming out. As I've mentioned since about February of this year, in terms of the Iran war, one of the biggest stories has been Bitcoin's role in what's going on in the Middle East, in particular, what Iran has done and how they have used Bitcoin, and further, the response from the U.S. Treasury to try to cut that crypto Bitcoin payments, Bitcoin flowing through so that they are, again, unsanctionable, so that they can skirt around these economic sanctions. So I'm not going to be surprised if there is, at the very least, crypto mention in this press conference that we're going to see in a couple of hours. Obviously, if you're kind of reading between the lines, it is like a Bitcoin story here. Now, obviously, maybe this is just me being a Bitcoiner with my orange colored lenses, but I'm not going to be surprised if there is Bitcoin or crypto mention in this press conference later, but that's not the real story. That's just kind of what we're going to see. I did hear a lot of people say that this press conference from Scott Bessent was going to be solely focused on the bond market. Now it seems like it's going to be, economic D-Day on Iran. So it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that press conference later, but that really, I don't think has the effect that we would like to see on Bitcoin in terms of number go up. Look, I think I saw someone on Rumble say, "Good morning, Fiat Maxi," to me. Hey, price is pumping. It feels good. All right. Hey, don't take away my happiness here because we got a little price action. Okay. What we are seeing, and me and Nico were arguing about this. I believe it was Friday. No, I wasn't here Friday, guys. Thursday. Nico was saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's pumping because of the White House Bitcoin meeting or press conference." But I'm like, no, dude, it's what's going on in the treasury markets. It's what Scott Bessent did that is the reason for Bitcoin pumping. So just to add on top of that, remember they announced a government bond debt buyback of about $2 billion, from $2 to $4 billion, which was just a straight double on the debt buyback kind of system. What we've done in the past, they're like, hey, we got to double this to protect the bond market. Later on in the day, and I think by Friday, the rumors were that it might get as high as $8 billion. Well, now we got a crazy, literally like an insane increase in the potential of money to buy back debt. And this is the latest that we heard this morning. Breaking. U.S. Treasury is considering using $950 billion general account to help fund its increased purchases of long-term government bonds. Once again, the era of bond market intervention officially began on August 19th. This is the top priority of the Trump administration. So we went from $2 billion debt buyback, bond buyback, to $4 billion to now close to $1 trillion. Now, maybe this is the point where you rewind and re-listen to what Arthur Hayes was saying, because we're seeing that the magnitude is what is it? 50 times bigger now. This is, as we were mentioning last week, the Treasury blinking. It is basically them telling investors, hey, if you are in bonds, you might want to get out of them. It's probably not the place to go if you are looking for returns, which as an investor means, okay, I need to move down the risk curve here. I need to probably go into not only just hard money or hard assets, but also I can probably play a little farther on my risk return curve here, because if the place that you park money for, like, you know, as everyone says, zero risk, it's not going to give me any returns. Well, then I guess I got to get a little riskier. And this is what the Treasury is basically signaling to investors. And going further, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Ray Dalio. He said this verbatim over the weekend. Here we go. Dalio says, sell bonds, buy gold and Bitcoin as the debt crisis looms. Ray Dalio said investors should reduce their bond holdings and put as much as 15% of their money in gold to hedge against the risk of a U.S. debt crisis. Estimates U.S. government revenue at about $5.5 trillion this year against $7.5 trillion in spending, leaving a $2 trillion shortfall, and warns a U.S. debt crisis could arrive in 3 years, give or take 2. So anywhere between 1 to 5 years. Now, obviously, it's like not that narrow of a prediction here. And Dalio is kind of a doomer, I'm not going to lie, but he is one of the investors that a lot of people look to, and it's like, hey, well, if Dalio is saying this, there's probably something there. If there's smoke, there's probably fire. Obviously, also, he did recommend in that 15% that you should get, as you can see here, a bit of Bitcoin to reduce your risk and boost returns. So it's not just Opti or simply Bitcoin saying that, oh, you know, what the Treasury did is so important for us as Bitcoiners. We have some of the legendary fiat investors that are saying the same thing. And that is the signal here. If the Treasury is essentially announcing that they might use $1 trillion now, not $2 billion or $4 billion or $8 billion, close to $1 trillion to buy back bonds, that's what it's signaling to the market. Exactly what Ray Dalio just said. Sell your bonds and buy gold or Bitcoin. And we did see gold rally. It's roughly around like 4,600, so 4,600 right now. Bitcoin's obviously pushing towards 80K as we speak. So this is the signal that bond investors, more traditional type investors, more investors that are conservative are viewing the moves that we're seeing right now. And they're like, oh man, maybe I do have to sell these bonds. If there's no returns, I have to sell these bonds and I have to look elsewhere. And obviously we're sitting here waiting. And I think that's why we saw Bitcoin pump to, you know, close to 80K over the weekend or on Friday or Thursday. I forget, Thursday. And so this signal is starting to get out there. Now, we just got this news this morning, $1 trillion bond buyback. It's huge. It's insane. And as Arthur Hayes was saying in the beginning, it's essentially, you know, adding more liquidity to the system, even though it is like it's almost like a QT. They are buying back bonds, so they're kind of taking liquidity off the table. But I think the mechanics are a little more interesting, where they're essentially taking long-dated bonds off the table, 10 and 30 year. But how do they do that? They're basically issuing short-term bonds for that. So it is a QE kind of scenario. That's how everyone's reading this, even though it is kind of like a quantitative tightening. Like, it is a tightening move, but in reality, I think in the mechanics, I think how rather put better, it's not about the reality. It's what the market is hearing. And the market is hearing, oh man, a liquidity bomb is about to explode. And I do not want to be holding bonds. So that signal is getting out there. And I think that's why Bitcoin is responding how it is right now. And of course, front running what everyone's expecting, the, you know, 50K, sub 50K by Q4 or October. I think the bull run's already started, guys. And I think maybe I'll talk about that a little at the end of the show, because I wasn't here Friday. I wasn't here to, you know, get happy and get bull-tarded with you guys. So we'll do a little bit of that towards the end of the show. But there is a few good responses here. Here's Safe Dean's take on this. And he goes, Bessent's $4 billion buyback plan last week was like walking into a kitchen and asking for a cup of water to put out a fire in the living room. Asking for only a cup doesn't magically make people calm that it is a small fire. It makes them worry about the fire and worry even more that your measly cup won't be enough to put it out. The difference is that in the bond market, their worry fuels the fire. And again, yields are still higher than when this announcement was made. And now we're hearing, oh yeah, it's not 4 billion, it's $1 trillion. So the Treasury, Scott Bessent, who, as we all know, it's kind of one of those like, hey, you may not like Scott Bessent, but at least he's kind of like the asshole on our side, you know, like, yeah, maybe he did work for George Soros, but like now he's kind of on our side. And so I think he knows what he's doing. At least if you are a more American-centric person, you're viewing this and you're like, well, he's doing the best he can. And in many cases, and I think maybe in a second order effect, this is going to be extremely good for Bitcoin. As we know, what do we always say in Bitcoin? The more liquidity in the system chasing, the more liquidity that is going to go into Bitcoin. All right. So more dollars in the system. They are all looking for something scarce. They all have to find somewhere to park that cash. And Bitcoin's just waiting there as, you know, just it's literally was born for this moment. And we're seeing it play out exactly as we all had predicted a long time ago. Yes, there's been, you know, little detours along the way, but things are playing out almost too perfectly. It is almost, I don't want to say terrifying how well it is working, because it's playing out exactly as Bitcoiners have predicted for a very long time. It's just the mechanics are a little different. Now, if this is all playing out, which I don't even think it's a give, like it's not even an if, it's more of a given at this point. Like it is playing out exactly as we thought it was going to. The real question here for us as Bitcoiners and, you know, number go up enthusiasts is at this point, one, how long will it take for investors, traditional conservative investors, to realize what is happening? And then two, how high is Bitcoin going to rip? There is a really good, hold on. Sorry, guys. I had to drink way more caffeine than I wanted to. I just got off a plane this morning. I think you can hear it. The kid's kind of cooked. I'm like lack of sleep, geeked on caffeine, but the show goes on. Anyways, enough of my problems. Matt Cole did a really good thread, and maybe I'll break it down for you guys tomorrow, but it's a little longer thread. It doesn't really fit in the context of what we're talking about on today's show. But he's making the case, and I'm starting to really lean into this idea. I think I've been saying this for a while. I think this bull run that we are just starting might be bigger than we've seen in a very long time. It might almost end up being one of the biggest bull runs we've ever seen. And that's saying a lot, considering that 2017 was like a 20x. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see a 20x bull run per se, but what I am saying is everything is kind of playing in our favor right now. And it just depends on what is going to be the final straw to cascade again, scientific term, shit ton of capital to find its way into Bitcoin. Are we at that point? As Ray Dalio said, 1 to 5 years, which is kind of like not the, tightest scope of a time frame prediction. But I think what we are seeing is playing out to be like this bull run might be insane. Now, obviously, you guys can troll me all you want, and it's like, Opti, you were saying 150K last cycle in 2025. You were wrong. I agree. I'm not giving you a price prediction per se. I'm just like, I am the source. This is what my gut instinct is telling me, is like, I think this bull run that we are entering in, that we have already entered into, is going to be absolutely huge. Last week, we saw a 25% increase on the Bitcoin price. I was watching the price pretty close, even though I went and saw my family this weekend, so I wasn't fully in tune with all of the news this weekend, but I was watching the price. I wouldn't say closely, but intently. I was kind of looking at the price. I'm like, okay, can we maintain this 78K range? I know it went down to like 76 for a little bit, but we're back around 78. And I was like, dang, that's a strong move. And if we can maintain this area right here, I'm convinced we are going to start ripping. Obviously, it's not going to happen like overnight, but as we saw in 1 week, we saw Omega candle. So everything is playing out I think very strongly right now. I think all the headwinds have turned into tailwinds for us. And it's only a matter of time until we see Bitcoin really start ripping. Now, obviously, you can say I'm just bull-tarded, spitting hopium. I'm, what's the joke we always say? Clickbaiting you into profits. But I don't think that you should be waiting till October. Actually, I've been saying this on the show for a very long time, that if you are on the sidelines with cash, and I'm glad I did say this. I was saying it for the last month or so, that you should probably get your position before October, because in the last move from this last week, I have a lot of friends, and I'm not going to name names, but some of them you know and some of them you don't, that are sitting in cash right now, and they're like, damn, I was hoping I had more time. I was kind of thinking the Q4 4-year cycle was going to play out exactly. They knew for a fact it was going to go under 50K. And now they just have a bunch of cash, and they're like, man, should I get back in the market? Is it going to crash again? Do I need to speed up my DCA, or kind of like my, it'd be like a DCA back in? As we're seeing, I think a lot of people are getting a little blindsided by the move that we saw last week. And I'm glad I've been telling you guys on the show, hey, you probably want to get back in the market right now. You probably want to make a plan to get all your sideline cash back into Bitcoin, probably a lot quicker than you expected. Now, obviously, I think I was saying you want your position before October. I really wasn't expecting us to see the price pump like we did at the end of August. I was thinking maybe end of August, most likely September is when we start to see the price start to make its move up. Obviously, I didn't really believe that it was going to be an October low where we would know for sure, final capitulation, last leg down, clear out the market, like ready to rip. Though there still is a chance that we might get one more pullback, but I think the race has started, guys. I think the fun has started. I think the fireworks are being lit, and it's going to be a great 2 years here, guys. I think we are all going to be very happy after we had a very lackluster bull run in 2025, and it's been basically sideways for 2 years minimum. Actually, if you've been into 2021, we're back at 2021 prices. So you could arguably say 5 years it's been sideways. I think we are going to rip because of what Scott Bessent is doing in the Treasury market. And again, you may not care about bonds. You may not even focus on macro. But Bitcoin is a macro asset now. Bitcoin is in that conversation. And actually, I was gonna cover this later, but I'll just pull it up right now because it is fitting in this conversation. So I saw Bitcoin Archive post this, and it's very interesting in the context of what I just said. So he's posting Bitcoin correlation with tech software stocks dropped to 0. Bitcoin is now officially an asset class of its own. In the context of what we're seeing, I think it makes a more interesting point than if I, showed you this later. Bitcoin is a macro asset. It is in the macro conversation. It's in the geopolitical conversation. And for the longest time, the general perspective of Bitcoin was like, oh, it's just a, high beta tech stock. It's just like, it trades like a tech stock. It's just like a tech stock, but it has really good gains. Well, we're starting to see that correlation and really more that narrative start to go away. And people are starting to look at Bitcoin as a unique thing, which is what we have done, which is what us Bitcoiners have been doing for a very, very long time. Yes, every once in a while we'll find a new correlation and there's a new connection that we're like, oh, look at Bitcoin's trading like this. And that's explaining why the price action is what it is. Well, now we're getting, going full circle, and more traditional, again, conservative investors are looking at Bitcoin as a, quote, unique diversifier. Remember the BlackRock report that I think Nico showed you guys on Friday. BlackRock is out there saying this. I think this is probably the general trend that we're seeing from a lot of traditional investors is they're starting to realize that, oh, wait, this Bitcoin thing is unique. Remember, the 60-40 portfolio doesn't work anymore. The 60-40 bond equity portfolio, like, yeah, you know, it's worked for the longest time. It is a very conservative portfolio diversifier. But now if you just add 1 or 2% of Bitcoin to that, again, it is, quote, a unique diversifier that is uncorrelated to other assets. So Bitcoin is carving out its own narrative right now. And actually, it's the narrative that's been around for the longest time. But again, it's really the perception of the investor that might be the more important aspect of this. It is what we've been saying since 2024, that it's going to take the investors, the traditional institutional investors, some time for them to fully grok Bitcoin, to fully understand what Bitcoin is, and further, to fully understand where they put Bitcoin in their portfolio and what are the reasons for adding Bitcoin to your portfolio. Well, now we're seeing it play out exactly as we've been saying for the longest time. And it's really thanks to Scott Bessent and what the Treasury is doing. And also, you know, because bonds aren't doing so hot. So it's not all roses here. You know, it's not all roses and sunshine. Like, there is a very real concern about what's going on in the bond market. But with that concern, and obviously, like, if the bond market, if the U.S. bond market, or even the Japanese bond market, if they melt down, you better believe Bitcoin's going to get wrecked. All right. So in a small portion, a small part, we do not want to see the bond market blow up, because that's going to be bad for society at large, and everyone is going to get hurt by that. That's going to be disastrous for every single one of us. So seeing Scott Bessent and the U.S.Treasury do these moves to try to protect the bond market, it is a subtle nod to everything we've been saying in Bitcoin for forever, that, like, this is why you want Bitcoin. This is the reason for Bitcoin. Yes, of course, we love the circular economy and the peer-to-peer and, you know, the like sovereign money aspect of this, the, you know, dare I say, the gray market aspect of Bitcoin. But the store of value, the uncorrelated asset, the apolitical money aspect of Bitcoin is coming to center stage here. Like, this is, I think, what a lot of people will look at Bitcoin and be like, this is the reason why I need to invest in Bitcoin. This is the reason why I need to hold some wealth in Bitcoin. It's because it's uncorrelated, because it is an unparalleled asset, because it is something so alien and unique that I need to hold this, because look at what's going on in traditional markets. It's not making me feel that good. If I was a traditional investor, if I was actually someone, you know, like a boomer out there, and I basically built all of my wealth using a 60-40 portfolio and maybe, you know, some real estate in there. If you're looking at these moves, you're doing exactly what Ray Dalio is saying. It's like, yeah, I think I need to sell some bonds here. I think I need to get into gold. You know, I need to protect myself in gold, protect myself in Bitcoin, because this is not making me feel that good as a traditional bond investor, that I will get the returns that I have expected and gotten for the last, 10, 20, 30 years plus. This is the Treasury basically acknowledging that there is a problem, and they will do whatever they can to protect it, to save it. And that's why I think Bitcoin is ripping. Yes, I know for us Bitcoiners in our echo chamber, we don't really look at the macro moves to persuade us into buying Bitcoin. We're just like, hey, I want to own as much of this Bitcoin thing as possible. I don't really care about the price. I don't even care about the macro factors surrounding it. I just want to get my hands on as many Bitcoin as possible. We're a very unique perspective here. We're a very unique investor. As a Bitcoiner, as a Bitcoin maxi, as a hardcore Bitcoiner, we don't really look at the external factors to convince us to buy Bitcoin. we look at Bitcoin as just very unique thing. It has, I don't want to say intrinsic qualities, because we all know, nothing has intrinsic value, but we look at the technicals of Bitcoin, and we just see, the diamond that it is. And we're just like, we just want as much of this as possible. But if you are a more traditional investor, you've really kind of talked Bitcoin away. You kind of ignored it. You shoot it out of your portfolio for the longest time. And now you're looking at it and you're like, oh, wow, maybe those Bitcoiners do have a point. There is a real concern in the bond market, and I might need to get more than 1% to 2%. Now, obviously, the Ray Dalio case is kind of interesting. Actually, side caveat, I always find it interesting. If you are a more traditional investor like Ray Dalio, and look, I don't mean to blaspheme here, okay? But for the fiat maxis out there, Ray Dalio is like almost a god to them. What he says is like, oh, I really, I really got to factor this into the equation of what I'm going to do with my portfolio. When it comes to us, Bitcoiners are like, yeah, Ray Dalio, like, cool. Like, I know of his name, but like, who really cares? And it's interesting that whenever we do a Ray Dalio video, like, it doesn't do that good. Bitcoiners just like don't care about Ray Dalio. But the more traditional investors, like, Ray Dalio's a god. If he says this, I got to do it. So it is interesting, though, that he is, recommending obviously more gold. I think gold is going to have a place in most people's portfolios. But it is interesting, like, yeah, sell bonds, 15% of your portfolio, get into gold, and then a little bit of Bitcoin. BlackRock's a little more bullish. They're a little more direct. They're like, yeah, you need 1% to 2% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. We're going to get to the point where I think more people are going to realize that maybe that 60-40 portfolio is the 60% is the 60-40 traditional portfolio, and then the 40% is in Bitcoin. Imagine if we get BlackRock out here again and all of the TradFi institutions on Wall Street realizing that they need at least 40% of their portfolio into Bitcoin. What would that be? That's like, I don't know, hundreds of trillions of dollars added and chasing Bitcoin. My bros. The gold market cap would get absolutely decimated. I haven't checked the market cap, but it's around like 30 trillion right now in gold. Imagine Bitcoin just leapfrogging that, 3xing the gold market cap. I think what's the number if gold or Bitcoin gets to the gold market cap, that's like $1.5 million per Bitcoin. Imagine if we 3x that. That's in the, I don't know, $3 to $5 million per coin. Look, I'm not saying that's what's going on. I'm just saying, it's the John Lennon song. Just imagine a world where Bitcoin adds $100 trillion because the more traditional investor realizes, oh, wait, I actually need 40% of my portfolio in Bitcoin. And I'm just throwing out numbers. All right. I'm doing my best Luke Mikic impersonation right now, where I just throw out numbers and I'm just like, all right, let's just get bullish. But we're in very interesting times right now. And I know for a more traditional Bitcoiner lens, like, okay, now Opti's talking about macro, like Opti's doing the macro thing. Opti's trying to get his influencer cloud up, so he's pivoting to macro. It's like, no, dude, I personally just think that macro right now, like, it's the most interesting thing to me. I was going to say important, but I think what is going on in the macro landscape is the most interesting thing going on right now, because Bitcoin has been kind of boring. And further, because Bitcoin is entering the macro conversation, I think, as we mature, as we grow up, let's understand the macro situation and how Bitcoin fits in that conversation. And again, since the war started in February, it has become crystal clear that Bitcoin is in the macro and geopolitical conversation. And I think that's only going to increase as we keep moving forward. So forgive me, guys, but we are simply macro now. Okay. We're simply macro. We will be talking about macro. Yes, I know. We'll be talking about some geopolitics as it relates to Bitcoin. Yes, I will continue to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related news, but we cannot just think about Bitcoin in a vacuum anymore. For the longest time, we could, because Bitcoin did kind of run on its own mechanics. It kind of did its own thing. But now we're growing up. All right. As an industry, as an asset, Bitcoin is growing up. And so it is in the macro conversation. It is in the, Iran-US war conversation. Because Bitcoin touches all. What we used to say, Bitcoin, our money is one half of every transaction. We got to change that. Bitcoin is one half of every transaction. Bitcoin is one half of every conversation. Bitcoin fixes this. Remember we used to say that Bitcoin fixes this? Fix the money, fix the world. We did get a little distracted with the institutions coming in, but nothing has changed here. We're still simply Bitcoin. We still view Bitcoin as eventually going to take over the world. World reserve currency status. It will be used as the world's money. We are just in the beginning of this. And I think as, who was this, Sightbringer? No, it wasn't Sightbringer. It was Kobayashi Letter said. As Kobayashi Letter said, and this will be the best way to end this, the era of bond market intervention officially began on August 19th. They're not calling it yield curve control, but they are intervening in the bond market. So it's a new era. We are in a new era here. And I know there's subtle changes. And actually, it reminds me of what me and Jeff Ross were talking about the other day, where he came in, blew all our minds with the macro stuff and made me feel a little better that I kind of know what I'm talking about here. But I think I mentioned in a way is everyone is still viewing the economic situation as if it's the same as it's always been. And that's just fundamentally not the case. Things are different. I'm not saying this time is different. All I'm saying is the landscape is different. And with that is obviously the need to adapt our perceptions, adapt our understanding, adapt, maybe clear our lens a little bit. And what the Treasury is doing is literally that. August 19th, the new era of bond intervention is here. So it is different. Things are different. Things are going to play out a little different. We have, it's almost like when a train jumps to another track, or maybe that one's a little too crazy. When you're bowling, I love bowling. I loved bowling growing up. I haven't bowled in a long time, but whatever. When you're messing around and you're going crazy and one of your worst bowling buddies comes up and they just throw it so hard down the lane that it jumps into another lane. That's the visual, okay? That's kind of where we are right now. Or for my more, and I said I was going to do a short show today, but apparently I'm rambling. And for my more esoteric friends, we have officially jumped into a new timeline, okay? We are in a new timeline. All right, guys, just realized I've been rambling for way too long. So I have some updates, some numbers of last week's crazy move. And then I'm going to wrap up the show today. Again, I tried to do a little shorter one. Maybe I'll be able to do it. But I saw an interesting couple of threads in terms of the idea of a millionaire. And I'm going to do a little Opti Hopium towards the end of the show. So that's the layout for today. I'll be right back. Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns. paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stampseed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY. All right. I'm not excited yet. Me either. Country Club Hillbilly. Me either. It's just, it feels good. All right. It feels good. I actually, side story, you know, tell me in the chat, do you guys like the side stories? I feel like you do, but maybe I just like to talk. Anyways, it was funny. I think it was Friday. No, maybe it was Thursday. I think it was Thursday. When I came into work, I saw Nico and he's trolling and he's like, dude, we're rich again. Like, we're pumping, man. It feels good. And I'm like, no, dude, we're not rich yet. Like, we're just less broke. And he looks at me, he's like, damn, you're so right. Because the price was maybe 80K. And he's like, dude, doesn't feel good being rich again. I'm like, no, dude, we're just less broke. Like, what are you talking about? Like, until we're past all-time highs again, it's like, what are we getting excited about? It just feels good that we are no longer bleeding, that the price is coming back, that, you know, there's some life back in the industry, in the price. You can feel the energy shifting. You can feel people be more optimistic. And it's just always funny to me that everyone is such a purist when it comes to Bitcoin. Like, the fiat price doesn't matter, bro. Bear market comes around, civil war, everyone's pissed off, slinging mud at each other. You know, the vibes are absolute rock bottom. Price comes back. We get a 25% rip in 1 week. And everyone's like, oh, man, it feels so good. And then, you know, the opposite. It's like, well, we're still 30% off all-time highs. Like, what are we celebrating about? But we can enjoy the little wins, okay? We can enjoy the little wins. All right. Let's go. So I was going to say, damn, how much Bitcoin do y'all own that y'all supposedly don't own? Dude, stop trying to dox us, bro. Look, I can feel good that my 30,000 sats is chill. All right. Like, hey, 32 sats is generational wealth. All right. I'm just happy that my 32 sats is closer to generational wealth. All right. Jeez, quit pocket watching, my dude. No, I'm trolling. All right. Anyways, the current Bitcoin price is 78,620. Again, I don't know if Nico brought this up last week. I think he did. Actually, I think he did. We are seeing and maybe I'll pull that up. Let me see if I can find it. We are seeing a really interesting sell wall built around 80K. Did I put it in my notes here? No. All right. Well, there's this one. So kind of giving you an update on this, like, we are seeing a pretty big sell wall at 80K. And I don't think I saved the tweet. But what's pretty interesting, kind of looking into that 80K sell wall, is that apparently a lot of the sell bids that are sitting up there at 80K have been there for like hundreds of days. So it is very interesting right now that this morning we did get close to 80K. Before the show, it was like 79.6 or something like that. And we haven't been able to break through that 80K. But what is interesting is going to be, at what point do those, either the wall gets knocked down, you know, Gorbachev, we're going to have to knock down this wall, or do those 80K sells get taken off the market because they've been there for so long? If that does take place, if some of those bids just completely come offline and further we break through that 80K sell wall, guys, we're going to be in for a fun time. All right. The end of the year might be a lot funner than we expected, you know, just a few weeks ago. Anyways, the current discount from all-time high is 37.6. We are back to $1.58 trillion market cap. Oh, wow. Jeez, my bad, guy. Dude, Nico messed with my soundboard. It's all messed up here. Okay, and the current block height for true Bitcoin, for the one undisputed chain, it's 963,881. All right, so updated numbers here, guys. Remember, I've been kind of telling you guys that if you're looking at the price action right now, what we're seeing, or what we did see for a while, is that the Bitcoin price was being driven by the futures market. And until we see the spot activity, excuse me, the spot activity come back, until we see the spot demand to buy spot Bitcoin, it's basically paper Bitcoin games, right? Well, I'm not saying we are seeing that per se yet, but we did see some interesting numbers finally come through on Friday. We were actually covering it all week, but here's the updated numbers. So shout out to Alex Thorne. And also, side note, dude, Alex killed it on Friday. Full disclosure, that's the only part of the Friday show that I watched. I watched the Alex Thorne interview. No knock, Nico. But I've heard Nico's rants. I hear that every single morning. So I went this weekend, saw my family, saw my parents. The only portion of the show that I watched from Friday was the Alex Thorne interview. So shout out to Alex Thorne. He's been doing incredible work. But he goes, last week was a top 20 week for spot Bitcoin ETF flows. To be more specific, it was the top 18th, or actually, it was the 18th best ETF flow week we've seen since 2024. You can see August 17th to August 21, it was $1.9 billion in dollar term. It was a total of 27,231 Bitcoin that was bought up by the ETFs. And if my memory is being served correct, about 80% of that was through the BlackRock IBIT ETF, which is telling you that the institutions really want this Bitcoin. And also we saw Paul Tudor Jones come out and say he's pro Bitcoin, or actually the SEC filings show like he's heavy Bitcoin. Obviously BlackRock, super heavy Bitcoin. There was someone else. Well, of course, Ray Dalio came out like, hey, you want to buy some Bitcoin? Actually, Luke was making an interesting case. I forget who the third person was, but he's like, the last time we had Paul Tudor Jones, Ray Dalio, and someone else, I'm blanking on who it was. Anyways, a third person come out and be bullish on Bitcoin. That was 2020. And Bitcoin, did a 5X, I think, minimum after that. What's 5X from 80K? I don't know. Good number. Good number go up. Would that be 450,000? 5X from 80. I think so. Dude, 6-figure Bitcoin is coming way quicker than ever. I'm excited. Anyways, going further. Here is, what do they call it? Market context and catalyst. So bear market reversal, Treasury doubles long bond buybacks, Trump backs the Clarity Act, short squeeze. Dude, it's such a, God, last week was such a perfect. These are the days that we live for. These are the weeks that we live for. What we saw last week, it was like chef's kiss. Actually, another side note. I didn't even see if you guys, Peter Thiel. All right, why the chat's distracting me? Oh shit, I lost my train of thought. The chat distracted me. What was I just saying? Oh yeah, I was gonna say the side note thing, and you guys didn't tell me if you like the do you guys like? All right, do you guys like just me being purely news? As like I'm a news anchor here, just covering the news, or do you like the personality? You like the little stories here? One person at very least, tell me what you think in the chat. Peter Schiff, Kevin O'Leary, no. But these are the days you live for. Alex Thorne did follow this up, and he goes, weekly net ETF flows since launch in January 2024. Note that the BTC USD line on this chart uses weekly close, so hasn't updated yet for this week's price action. All right. But you can see the net spot Bitcoin ETF flows. We haven't had a day like this since basically October, maybe right before the 10-10 crash. God, feels good, man. We're back. Are we back? You're man. Thank you, Keith Faulkner. Thank you, man. I know what I don't want to tell you what to do. Oh, wow. Dude, I'm here to serve. I'm here to please. It's my job to be entertaining. Anyways, what we're seeing, I should I do it now? Let me see. Yeah, I'll do it now. All right. I said I was going to wait till the end to do kind of like the Bitcoin price, hopium bulltard take here. But I think what we're seeing right now is without a doubt a confirmation that the bull run is here. That's basically what I would have told you on Friday. Oh, I remember what it was. My boy Sal, the unofficial official trainer of Simply Bitcoin, he texted me on Friday and he's like, dude, how are you not on the show when the price is pumping? Like, what are you doing, bro? It's like, how do you take a vacation on the day that Bitcoin is pumping? He's like, you can't, he didn't say this. It's like, you can't leave us to the bear, Nico, when the price is pumping. And I think I saw Interbelden in the chat, or maybe it was Winsome Hacks. I don't know. I think I kind of I jumped in later at the end of the show, or I forget at what point, but I saw someone in the chat that's one of the regulars. They're like, all right, dude, like Nico's got to be bullish today. And then in like a couple of minutes later, the comment was like, there he goes. And so I wasn't watching, but I could only suspect that, even when we're feeling bullish, he probably was being bearish. And like, hey, 50K by October still in play. I'm the opposite. I'm like, dude, bull run's here. Like, hold on. Bull run's back, baby. Bear market's over. In hindsight, we'll look back and, we will all laugh together and applaud and be like, Opti was right. Not just me. It's not about me being right. It's about that you were right, that we stayed bullish, even though we were in a bear market and everyone's calling us an idiot. And they're like, oh, I know for a fact that Bitcoin's going to bottom by October of Q4 this year. Dude, we're back. Bull run started, 2 months earlier than expected. We saw the all-time high a month before expected. We didn't get as high as we thought we were going to go in this bull run. But with that comes the fact that we have the least volatile bear market in history. Obviously, it's still a little early to take our victory lap and be like, all right, 55% bear market or 55% correction. Like, let's go. But it's looking like I'm on, let's see, 99. No, I'm not 99% sure. Let's see. Realistically, I'm probably at like 89% positive that we are completely out of the woods. Now, does that mean we're just going to go straight up from here? No. We will see some pullbacks, some corrections, but not like I don't think we're at, what was the price? 78. There could be a chance that we do see one final liquidity sweep, and that would be a pretty brutal dip, like a pretty brutal crash. But I think if that were to take place, it would look like I think it was 2023, or was it the end of 2022? I keep mixing. I think it was 2023 where the last bull or bear market ended. We did see something very similar where, it went sideways. Then we had a good pump up, and then it kind of I got to do it backwards. It kind of did like a little umbrella. And then we saw one sharp correction, and maybe it was 2-3 days where the price crashed. And then the next 2 days, it went, completely back up. That's why I'm not like 99% sure. That's why I'm kind of like 89%, which is not the best guarantee, I suppose. But I could see something like that play out. I think my base case here is that we will get kind of a new accumulation phase. So it'll go up, kind of goes down, up a little bit. We are wick off maxis now, dude. The wick off accumulation scheme played out perfectly. What was the other one? What's the Elliott wave? See, we are not Elliott wave people. We are wick off maxis. Okay, the wick off patterns is undefeated. I think I've been calling this for months that we're seeing a wick off accumulation right now, and if you look at some of these wick off posters, that sounded weird. It's playing out exactly. So we did a accumulation down here at the bottom. We got our pump up. Now we're going to do a little accumulation, and then we're going to do another one, and that's how we're going to stair step our way back to the stairway to heaven and get to all-time high. So I'm feeling pretty good. Yes, I know we're still 37% off all-time high. We can't even really claim 80K right now. We're testing 80K, but I think just keep in mind as we start climbing higher, we are going to be testing all of these. How do I say it? Psychological zones. We did 70K. We were at 67, 70K forever. We finally broke up. Now we're testing the 80K range. Once we get through the 80K range, we're going to move very quickly into the 90K and on until we get back to all-time high. So I think I saw, was it Standard Charter? Jeff Kendrick. I think he's at Standard Charter. And I saw Vanek also say something very similar over the weekend, where they are still kind of holding on to their predictions that we're going to be at 100K by the end of the year. I think that's pretty close to what we're going to do. I think we're going to go into Christmas this year, or if you celebrate Christmas, but the winter season, the Christmas time. And I think we're going to be pumping into the 100K, and maybe we'll see. Maybe we see some green candles, some green Christmas trees here, and we start to get back up to all-time highs by the end of this year. But I think we're probably climbing back up right now. So 100K by end of year, I think it's a pretty safe conservative bet here. That's where I'm at right now. So, hey, maybe this is the point where the old heads in the chat are doing the, Big Short, just, don't dance. Like, you're right, but just like, don't dance. Maybe that's where we are right now. But I think we're on the climb. I think we're climbing back up, boys. So, yeah, we're only, we can't even break 80K right now, but it does feel good, man. It feels good to be less poor here, It feels good to actually, so I wasn't on the Friday show, and you know what I was saying to my friends? It was like watching the price action last week. It reminded me that Bitcoin can actually pump. I'm not going to lie, for a little bit there, it really did feel like Wall Street was suppressing the Bitcoin price. Every time we made like a move, we would instantly get stomped down. We haven't seen really like an aggressive move in 4 or 5 years. Like, yeah, we see them occasionally, but we haven't seen, really strong moves. And watching what happened last week, it was like, oh yeah, I remember. I am reminded why I'm obsessed with Bitcoin. I am reminded what it felt like to see Bitcoin explode. And it reminded me that even though I am a bulltard, even though I'm stupidly bullish all the time, I realized that I started to get bearish. I just kept expecting Bitcoin to not pump as we've seen before. And it's just part of the bear market demoralization. It's like, man, maybe Bitcoin will never pump again. Maybe we will never see a 2017 bull run again. And then last week, it just completely threw that all out the window. I'm like, no, bro, we're back. We are going to pump like 2017, biggest bull run ever. It's here. All right. So we're going full bull tard, full hopium. The gains are back. All right. We are back. We know Opti's lying because he said he was telling a friend something. You ain't got no friend. It's true. It's true, dude. You're my friend. Mr. Lonely. I don't even have a friend to come on the show with me anymore. I just lose them all. I just talk to my imaginary friends, dude. I'm such a schizo. I'm schizo posting live. No. That was like my biggest takeaway from last week. Just being reminded, oh yeah, Bitcoin can rip. Oh yeah, we still got some fuel in the tank. This whole big number means it's harder for big number in Bitcoin. I'm like, that's cap. It's not the case. Diminishing returns is false. Diminishing returns is a fake news lie. Okay. We are not diminishing returns believers. We are Omega. I don't even know what's above Omega. What's a 20K candle? Godzilla believers. Bitcoin can rip. It still will rip. All right. This is our baseline. We may be wrong for a long time, but there will be a few days, few weeks here where Bitcoin rips and it reminds us why we are hardcore Bitcoin maxis. They will remind us why we have gone 100+% all in on Bitcoin, because it's still going to rip. That was my takeaway. That was my, enlightening moment from last week. It's like, oh yeah, wow, Bitcoin can still rip. Wall Street didn't neuter the price action. The market makers can't stop Bitcoin. Oh yeah, the mother of all supply shocks is real. The beach ball analogy is real. It is happening. I'm like, oh yes, I forgot what it felt like to see Bitcoin rip. And of course, 25% is like whatever. Barely, 62 to 80K or 62 to 77K, I think it was. It's like, okay, it only went up 15K in price. But I think in nominal terms, that was like the biggest move we've ever seen. Percentage-wise, it's like, we've seen Bitcoin rip more. But it was like, oh yeah, Bitcoin does have, like, I remember now. It's what I've always dreamt about. It's what I always thought it was. It's been a long time. But we're back. Boys, we are back. Boys and girls. I don't mean to characterize everyone here, but we're back. We never lost faith. We never lost faith in the coin. We just got a little down, okay? We just got a little negative. Staying optimistic is a little hard. All right. All right. I'll be right back. We're going to wrap up today's show.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Keet. If you own Bitcoin, the next question is how you actually protect it. Keet takes a different approach to self-custody. It uses a 2 of 3 setup with keys split between your phone, your Bitkey hardware wallet device, and block servers. You only need 2 keys to authorize a transaction. So losing one doesn't mean losing your Bitcoin. And Block only has 1 key, so they can't move your Bitcoin on their own. There's also no seed phrase to write down, hide somewhere, and hope nobody ever finds it. Recovery is built in, so if you lose your phone, replace a device, or something happens years down the road, you have a path back to your Bitcoin. And the Bitkey hardware wallet now lets you verify what you're actually signing directly on the screen. So instead of blindly trusting an address, you can confirm the real destination on Bitkey itself. It's self-custody designed around what actually happens in real life, from lost devices and mistakes to long-term ownership and inheritance. Get yourself a Bitkey today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off your new Bitkey. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or hivedigitaltech.com.
Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, cell towers can fail. Hurricanes, cyber attacks, blackouts. Most people go dark. Satellite phones don't rely on local infrastructure. With Iridium 77 satellites in orbit, you can stay connected across the U.S., even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123 also has Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags for your hardware wallets, and everything you need to build your own off-grid Bitcoin citadel. Go to sat123.com/simply and use promo code SIMPLY for 15% off anything in the store. Dude, funny enough, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a short show today. I'm like, well, I'll try to keep it under an hour. I guess it's because I got 1 day off. Come back and I just ramble forever. Couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. All right. I was like, I'm tired. I didn't get off. I literally didn't get into Miami till like 7 a.m. this morning. I was able to take a little nap. I'm like, I'm cooked. My brain's barely working. The flight cooked me. My back hurts. Couldn't get enough caffeine. I'm going to do a short show. No, dude, you just come on and come back to life. I'm such a dancing monkey. All right, anyway. The only time I'm alive is when I go live, dude. What did my life become? anyways. I don't know if you guys saw this, but super interesting. And this is why we're going to do in the culture. So Weekend Finance newsletter says that the new becoming a millionaire level is actually 4 times what it was in 1990. Obviously, as Bitcoiners, we know, like money printer, inflation, the decrease in purchasing power of the dollar, all that good stuff. But I think a more interesting conversation is kind of the framing around it. So 4 million is now the new 1 million. It just doesn't roll off the tongue. Obviously, like we still kind of live in a world where even us, I think even Bitcoiners kind of would fall into this trap a lot. But, especially in popular culture, it's like, oh, millionaire, like we play with it in on the titles here. Sometimes it's like millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire, where if you say, like, for instance, what am I talking about? If you watch or digest traditional kind of content, like outside of the Bitcoin space, you'll see kind of or you'll see it on Twitter as well, a particular kind of blueprint where it's like millionaire, millionaire says this is how you, get wealthy, or this millionaire's hack to being, more productive, or you know what I'm saying? You see those around. And it still has the weight of like, oh, a millionaire. Okay, cool. Like, yeah, a millionaire. It's interesting. Like, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about. He must be rich. But that label, like it millionaire sounds better than saying like a 4 millionaire. 4 millionaire says this is what you need to do to get rich. It just doesn't roll off the tongue. But still, the kind of conversation around being a millionaire, like it still has the weight. When you look, maybe it's because some of us grew up in a time where like millionaire still meant something. When you say like, oh, he's a millionaire, you're like, oh wow, like that guy's rich. He never has to work a day in his life. For us now, being a millionaire, it's like, yeah, it's cool. You have some financial freedom, but it's not how it used to be, 30 years ago, where if you were a millionaire, it's like you almost didn't have to work. It's like, oh, dude, he's made for life. Now you're a millionaire and you're still basically poor. You're like, I don't even think a millionaire is not even upper middle class. A millionaire is basically like average. Like that's the average income. Like that's the average net worth you need to just like have a decent life. And I'm not talking like extravagant life, but obviously this is what it's saying. The new millionaire level is 4 million. And maybe that is, a goal. Like, remember, guys, we used to do the how much Bitcoin you need to retire. Now, obviously, that's a totally different conversation. But I think in your head right now, like, you want to have about $4 million to feel like a millionaire, to feel rich. And I think a lot of us probably aren't anywhere close to that. I know a lot of my friends are nowhere close to that. I don't even know. I don't even know how some of my friends survive. They aren't necessarily Bitcoiners. They got like, dude, maybe 6K in savings. I'm like, whoa, bro. That's more than me. I don't hold any Bitcoin. But 4 million is the new 1 million. All right. So back in 1990, $1 million was fine. At 5%, you were getting $50,000. That was worth 45% of a house. Today, $4 million at 5% is $200K. This is hilariously about 48% of a house. Close enough. Obviously, part of this conversation is real estate prices are going up. Obviously, a lot of millionaires currently are simply millionaires because they own property. I think when you kind of average it out to the majority of people, I think very few people have like $1 million liquid. They probably are millionaires because of their real estate price increase, because of the equities in their companies. Like if you're $1 million liquid, you're probably in a better position if you're just $1 million net worther. But it is interesting, the conversation that like, I'm like hallucinating. I thought the door opened. $4 million is a new million. And when you look at the numbers, it does make our case for Bitcoin just that much easier. Obviously, inflation, the destruction of the dollar purchasing power, fiat purchasing power. But I saw this, and we all know the troll of like, it's not really a troll, but it's more of a meme of there's 58 millionaires in the world and there's only 21 million Bitcoin. So owning one coin is more rare than being a millionaire. Obviously, for most people, that idea is like, yeah, okay, cool story. But like, I don't value Bitcoin. I value $1 million. I think we will get to a point where, obviously, as I was saying earlier, Bitcoin will get to $1 million. Now, what is interesting that I just connected is say Bitcoin 3X's gold's market cap. Off the top of my head, that would be essentially like one Bitcoin equals about like 4 mil-ish. So, we just need we just need about $100 trillion to come into Bitcoin. And the one whole Bitcoiner is the $4 million number of the new millionaire. if you're using dollars. And we're talking today's dollars, so maybe that's like, I don't know, $10 million per Bitcoin. We're talking about today's purchasing power, right? But I saw this guy, and I think I pulled him up a lot. I really like his account. He might have some AI. But this just idea, the millionaire label is basically dead. $1 million still sounds like wealth because the word carries the emotional weight of another era. The purchasing power underneath it has been eroding for decades while the cultural image barely moved. And that is the real story here. In 1990, becoming a millionaire meant you had crossed a meaningful boundary. You were far outside the financial experience of the average household. The capital itself could fund, a large share of a comfortable life. Today, $1 million is often just the beginning of serious financial security. And that's crazy. That's just crazy. Like, I think a lot of us still have this idea of like, I just need $1 million and I'll be good. It's like, no, that's outdated too. Not only is the 60-40 portfolio outdated, but the idea of if I had $1 million, what's up, dude? I'm dating myself. Was it the Slim Shady LP? If I had $1 million, man, dude, I've just had a flashback. I love that song growing up. If I had $1 million, I can't say any of that song on this show, but growing up, singing those songs, it's like, yeah, if only I had $1 million, I'd be good. Nah, if only you had $4 million, you might be good. Or, if only I had a whole Bitcoin. That's where we are. The question is, what number will 4 million have become by the time today's 30-year-old reaches retirement? Because if the monetary regime remains broadly the same, the answer will not be smaller. Or, maybe we're on to something when we say being a whole coiner is rarer than a millionaire. We're just early. We're just pre-rich. 32 sats is generational wealth, boys and girls. We are going to get there. But it's interesting. It's not so much like, all right, I'm going to go on a little side tangent here. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately, maybe it's because it's my job, right? I'm a Bitcoin YouTuber, I'm a Bitcoin propagandist, I'm Bitcoin clickbaiter, whatever. I've been thinking, and it's not really necessarily like something I sit there and ponder. It's not like I go home after the show and I'm just like, how do I solve this problem? It's more of like a continuous thought in the back of my head. It's like a trajectory. It's like a something to attain, to become. And again, since it's my job to not only be entertaining and keep you up to date with the news, I'm always thinking of like, how do I better talk about Bitcoin in a way that makes people excited, makes people want to, better their lives through Bitcoin? As I always say, proof of work. Bitcoin is proof of work lifestyle. You got to work hard, you got to save, you got to hodl. You got to prove your work. You got to show up every single day. You got to break your ass. You got to sacrifice. You got to save. You got to, learn how to secure your coins. Like it's a way of life. It is a new operating system. Like I remember in the world, I lived in a world. I can remember in middle school when the Apple the colored computers came in and we were like, whoa, these things are so awesome. Obviously, like my whole life, I grew up with computers, but when the Apple, what was it, Macintosh, the colored ones, remember the commercials, dude? It was like revolutionary. I remember we used to have computer classes where they'd teach us how to use the computer, playing Oregon Trail and shit. Man, that was so lit. The before times. Now it's like everyone knows how to use a computer. It's like you're an idiot. How do you not know? my younger cousin, that's her favorite thing to say. You're an idiot. my 15-year-old cousin cooked me too. She's funny. But it's like now it's like, yeah, of course, computers are a part of our lives. I think we're in this place right now where for most people, they don't see how Bitcoin can improve their lives. And this is why we're all, evangelists. This is all we talk about. It's because we've seen the light, we've seen the beyond the wall, and most people haven't yet. And so I constantly am thinking about this idea of like, okay, maybe it's not so much about necessarily needing to talk about Bitcoin. It's almost like what Sightbringer said here at the very top of this tweet. It's the labels surrounding Bitcoin that is kind of the most interesting thing to me. It's like, it's not so much, it's almost going back to what I said in the beginning of the show, that what the Treasury is doing by announcing these bond buyback, like in and of itself, is not necessarily the signal. That's just like, the shot before the race. What is more interesting is what the investor perceives from these signals. And as I was making the case, Ray Dalio's out there basically saying, sell bonds, buy gold, buy Bitcoin. And so I think part of what we're all doing here as Bitcoiners, as Bitcoin content creators, you as a Bitcoiner at home, and you having these conversations with your friends and your family, I think a lot of what we're doing, and maybe this is where we've been misguided in the past, and I've been saying this for over a year, that what was said to us, what convinced us to be obsessed, go all in on Bitcoin, is most likely not what is going to get the next 100 million, billion people onto Bitcoin. So therefore, you don't go into the conversation with like, end the Fed, bro, inflation is theft, dog. Like those mechanisms, those rhetorical tools, those memes aren't going to be what gets the next round of Bitcoiners in. And part of what we do as Bitcoiners, or what we should be doing as Bitcoiners, is iterating and update how we talk about Bitcoin. How do we find new ways to get people excited about Bitcoin? And so it's like the labels around what we do is what's very interesting to me. Not so much for what the label is. It's like, Bitcoin hasn't changed, but the conversation around Bitcoin is changing. And I don't know about you, but it does seem like many people are much more receptive to Bitcoin. And so kind of like using this conversation about, hey, being a millionaire now means like, it's not just 1 million, you need 4 million minimum. And in reality, for most people, the idea of what a millionaire is, where like you don't really have to work if you don't want to, that number's probably closer to 10 million. And that's like 10 million liquid. So that would mean, I don't know, you probably need like 20, 15, 30 mil to like really be like, okay, I can do what I want to do. I can not work if I don't want to. I can set up my kids and my grandchildren. So you see that things have changed, but the way we talk about them haven't. Our lexicon is still outdated. And it is reminding me of just this whole idea of the 60-40 portfolio is outdated. It's really what I've been saying for a long time. Me and Jeff Ross said it the other day. It's like, we are in a new era. We are in a new time. We are in a new phase. But part of what that is we still don't really have the full picture in our head yet. We really don't have the words for it. We really don't know how this is going to play out. All we know is things have changed and things are changing. It's almost like we're creating the future as we speak. I know, wow, profound. It's not that profound. It's like we are all collectively creating it, where this is going, what it's going to be in real time. I used to say, and maybe if you've heard my rants in the past a long time ago, I have this mental picture, and I'll finish on this one. I'm a really bad painter. I used to like drawing. I used to like architectural painting. When I was a kid, I drew this house in I think it was like 3rd or 4th grade, and it was, man, I was like so happy. I was like, man, I love drawing houses. It was like I could look at a house and I draw. It wasn't like, it was literally like not that crazy. All right. I'm no, Michelangelo or anything like that. But I used to like drawing, and I used to look at houses, and I was like, oh man, I could maybe do this. This was when I was like really kid. Anyways, I say all that to say I'm a bad painter. All right. I draw stick figures. All right. But in my head, I have this mental picture of this painting. And I've told this to a couple of friends that aren't necessarily Bitcoiners. Maybe I've said it on the show or my old shows or whatever. But I have this picture in my head. It's as real as the room I'm looking at in my head. And it's like, let me paint the picture for you. There's a cliff. Wait, there's a cliff. And on the cliff, there's two people. One is astonished by what it sees going off the cliff. And the other one is like doubtful about what is happening off the cliff. So the cliff's here. There's two people, on the cliff. One's like amazed. The other one's like, that's not possible. And what they're watching is like, I don't want to say necessarily like a Jesus figure, but like, like a white angel looking figure. And the painting is more like oil painting. It's kind of dark, it's green. And off the cliff, so cliff's here, off the cliff, you see someone walking up a step, but the staircase isn't there. And the point of the picture is that there is like white steps that are falling behind this angel Jesus-like figure coming off the cliff. And you can see them falling behind. And he's taking his foot off one step, and the new step is kind of forming in front of him as the third step falls behind him. And every step he takes, it's kind of that idea of like faith, step into the water. And the new step is created while you take that step. And I think that's what we're all doing here. And we really don't have the language or the mental picture to really explain what is happening. We just have this like alien technology, and we have this unique scenario of situations going on macro, geopolitically, economically, and we are all trying to, do our best to understand what's going on. But I think very few people actually understand what's going on. And the idea of a lot of the kind of labels that we've been using, millionaire, 60-40 portfolio, things of such as those, better said, are still kind of like old world ingrained thinking. And part of this whole experiment that we're living through, the Bitcoin one, the digital panopticon one that maybe you're not the biggest fan of, the AI revolution, all of this is like, we still have the old software, the old firmware running in our brain. And we haven't, as a society, really updated that firmware yet. I think Bitcoiners might be a little closer to it, but that's only if you are not just like a staunch cult member, like if you're open to, hey, maybe I am wrong about certain things, like maybe there's things, maybe I had blind spots here. But I think Bitcoiners, and I'm not really much of a futurist, but obviously like people that are into AI are probably, they got part of the picture. People that are into the robotics, computers, tech, energy. Like, I think it's a combination of all of these things. And then, of course, feeding, agricultural, raising animals, all that stuff. So like, I think we have a lot of the pieces, but I think just as a society, we really have no idea what we're doing. And hey, it's part of growing up, right? It's part of becoming more conscious. And I think a lot of people are unconscious, and they're maybe hopefully now just realizing that, yeah, you need to use your brain. All right. Thinking is cool. Don't overthink. Overthinking is not cool. Why did I just get the meta, the Facebook, the drop. Oh yeah. Drop the. It's cooler. Drop the over. Just start thinking. It's cooler. Okay. Anyways, I'm rambling and I don't know if you guys are enjoying it. Maybe I'm rambling too much. Anyways, I think Opti. No, I didn't. I did not. Okay. I have not. All right. This is look. I come on the show, I do the news for you, but I'm a little more whimsical than you might know. I'm a little more eccentric than I lead on the show. But it's all me. All right. I like to think about stuff like this. If you've heard any of my rips in the past, I was way more out there than I am now. I like to have my head in the clouds, but my feet on the ground. So I'm a pragmatic optimist. I think I view the future is going to be amazing, but I also deal with the clay that I am dealt with today. Okay. All right, guys. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Dude, I went 30 minutes over than what I thought it today. All right. All right. Anyways, wrapping up the show. Oh, also, you're stuck with me all week, guys. Nico is going to be out officially all week. He is going to go to Bitcoin Asia. So he is getting on a plane to Hong Kong basically as we speak. So it's just going to be me all week. I might have some guests come in. Maybe I'll try to get Luke to come in. I don't know. Maybe I'll just rip it alone all week. All right. But that's this week. Simply Opti show. Hopefully the price pumps. I'll see you tomorrow, 12:40 p.m.-ish, Monday through Friday. And it's Monday. All right. So hopefully bullish week. I'm really hoping for the bull-tardedness. So I'll see you tomorrow, man. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy it. And I'll be back same time tomorrow. Have fun.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.